Have you ever had a mindset shift that changed your life in the matter of moments? I have, and I want to share it with you because this theory was so insightful for me. It changed how I look at the world. And I think it's something that you will also find not only beneficial, but something that you will remember forever. The principle is called the hindsight window. And the hindsight window is the length of time between an event that you perceive to be bad and the time it takes for you to be able to look at that event and see how it's actually there to serve you. It was a gift, something that you are now grateful for, right? Often our greatest hurts, they lead to our greatest triumphs. Maybe you didn't get into the school of your dreams, but then you ended up meeting the love of your life at the school you attended. Or maybe you were laid off from a job you thought was amazing, causing months of pain, only to find the absolute perfect role, one where going to work feels like a gift every day. We all have these examples. The difference between how you feel immediately after the situation and how long it takes you to find that feeling of gratitude, that time in between, that is the hindsight window. It's the time it takes for you to figure out, oh, this painful experience, that was supposed to happen so that I could find myself here. The hindsight window theory is that the longer your hindsight window, the longer it takes for you to find that realization, the less happy you will be in life. While the opposite is true. The shorter your hindsight window, the shorter time it takes you to find that realization, that gratitude, the happier you will be. The conjecture of this being, if you can shorten your hindsight window, you're going to live a happier, more enjoyable life all around. It's an emotional formula, right? And I want you to think about this. Regret and resentment in the past equals fear of the future. However much negativity you feel about your past, it's going to show up as fear and resistance towards your future. Can you see how this is played out for you? The opposite is also true. How much gratitude you have for your past will show up as faith for your future. Can you also see how this has been true for you? I personally would like to say it's more than just emotional formula, but perhaps one of our universal laws. And this is really important to learn because in life, the waves will continuously come. Some are big, some are small, but they never completely cease. Those constant little challenges that come your way, they're not getting in the way of your life. They are your life. Learning how to harness the power of the hindsight window is like getting on a surfboard to help you navigate the waves of life and turning those waves into the ride of a lifetime. Yeah, let's talk about this process. I want to break it down with you and give some examples. We're going to start with the future because the future is the easiest to clean up of the three of future, past, present. When you know something is going to be a problem, when you're aware of a difficulty you have, you can come up with a solution to solve it. Now, this is something I did for myself. I used to have a lot of little irritations. I'm sure you know pet peeves. Everyone has their own pet peeves that are special to them. Pet peeves, they cause you to feel annoyed. They cause you to feel upset and irritated. They get in the way of your day. I mean, they can turn a perfectly pleasant experience into one of extreme displeasure. For me, these came in the form of little things like people talking loudly in the movie theater, live performance, someone cutting in front of me in line or cutting me off on the freeway. Or this was a big one for me. Tall person comes and stands in front of me at a concert. And this might not seem like a big deal, but this really got me. I love to dance and I love to go out dancing, but I'm really short. So I always find a good spot for me that I can see and I'll have room to dance. And I'll be there and I'll be having a great time dancing. And inevitably, almost every time, someone, like the tallest person in the room, comes and stands right in front of me. And it's not like they come and stand and they're dancing in front of me, giving that space. No, they like to come and stand and be a wall and just block off that beautiful musical energy that I find myself just trying to get a piece of. And you guys, it makes me crazy. It makes me crazy. I mean, sometimes I would find myself screaming at the person in my head. My ability to enjoy myself completely cut off because this person inserted themselves in front of me. These moments would take me from feeling amazing to feeling angry and resentful. And I would be simmering with that anger instead of feeling that euphoric joy I had just moments before. This did not serve me. One day I realized that while I can't do anything to change what people do around me, I can always change how I react to certain situations. While I can't change others, I can change myself. So, what did I do to change myself? I devised a practice. I decided every time I became triggered, every time I became irritated by someone else's behavior, I would change my own internal feelings. Instead of ruminating on my irritation, how can they do that? How can they be so unself-aware? How can they not see how much they're driving people crazy? No, I'm done with that. I'm done with those thoughts and feelings. I have trained myself. So every time I feel an inkling towards that thought process, every time an irritation rears up, I train myself to send them love. And I know some people might be rolling their eyes at me on this, but stick with me. I will focus my energy on them with all the love I can muster. And granted, sometimes this is difficult. So when that is, I will visualize this pink golden light surrounding me all around, above, below, on the sides. And I picture it infusing my body with this love, with this light. And then I visualize that pink golden light emanating from my heart into that person's body. I will focus this energy. I will feel that love. And you guys, what I found is nothing short than amazing. People apparently are way more comfortable with eye daggers of hatred being thrown their way than they are with love. Because in all of my years of being irritated, my irritation never made someone stop doing whatever it was that was irritating me. No, my irritation never made an irritating person stop. In fact, I probably egged them on even more, to be honest with you. But magically, when I focus on sending this love, something the other person has no idea is happening, they somehow feel it. Because I'm telling you, 80% of the time when I send that love, within a matter of minutes, that person will either leave my presence or they stop doing whatever it was that was irritating. It is like magic. It's like magic. And you guys, even if they don't move, even if they don't stop what they are doing, I have transformed myself and how I am feeling in the moment. I took myself from that angry, negative feeling to one of loving positivity. And it is a gift every time. It is an absolute gift every time. Sending love has become one of my personal superpowers. I life hacked everyday irritations, and you can do this for your future too. But what do we do if it's something happening in the moment or in the past? Let's start with the past because even that is easier than dealing with something in the moment. We all have past stories that are seen through a perspective that is not serving us. You have the power to review your past stories and look at them through new eyes, cleaning them up in a way that supports you being your best self. This is a beautiful example. One of my podcast guests on Thriving After 40, Michael Ward, a life coach, shared a very powerful story. I've never forgotten it. His mother died at a young age. She died from cancer when Michael was only 6 years old, and this was highly traumatic. His dad went on to marry someone else, someone who wasn't super kind to Michael. And for the child that grew up in this situation, he felt abandoned. He felt disenfranchised. His early internal story was one of great disservice. This impacted how he looked at and felt about his life for 40 years. Then one day, he's sitting in a Tony Robbins seminar, and Tony's asking the audience to bring up the most emotional and earliest memory possible. For Michael, he knew exactly what memory this was. His earliest and most emotional memory was saying goodbye to his mother in the hospital. Michael could see himself, his siblings, his dad, his grandparents in the hospital room. Michael was the youngest at only 6 years of age, scared to see his mom hooked up to all the tubes and all the wires, her head shaved. He remembers hiding behind his dad's legs, scared, as his mom held out her hand to him. He remembers going to his mom. He's holding her hand. He's crying and he's saying, I love you, Mommy. I'm scared, Mommy. And she tells him, it'll be okay, Michael. I love you so much. It'll be okay. And that was the last time he got to speak to his mom. And then Tony says, now I want you to look at this memory from the other person's perspective. What is happening? What do you think about the same event looking through their eyes? And in that moment, Michael could see how hard his mom had fought. She had been diagnosed when he was a baby. She had fought hard for six long years. She fought her ass off to stay alive through that time, through all of the fighting of the cancer, because she wanted her family to be okay. She kept a smile on her face. And in every picture, in every video, Michael's mom is happy. She's smiling. She's enjoying the life she was living with her husband and kids. She loved life. Every memory he has of her is a loving one. Michael could see that she had danced through life. She had truly lived as if she were dying. Even though everyone listening to this right now is alive, that does not mean you are truly living. And Michael's mom, he saw in that moment, she had truly lived. She had truly loved. She did not give up. She gave as much as she could while she was there. And Michael was ever so lucky to have been loved by such a mom. Then Tony Robbins gave one final instruction. He told the audience to now look at the memory from God's perspective or a higher universe perspective. And Michael could see that his mom, Kathy, had been fighting for so long, fighting for her kids. And God had said, it's okay now. You can rest now, Kathy. You're coming with me. But together, you and I, we will watch over Michael. We will watch over all of your kids. They will be okay. Tell them it's going to be okay, because it will be. And in that moment, Michael knew that he had never truly been alone. His mom has been walking with him every step of the way, and it is going to be okay. And now, this story that had been disempowering, a poor me tale he had carried with him for his entire life, it had now become an empowering story, one where Michael is always watched over. And in that moment, this story became one that lifts him up and carries him to this day. And when things are going tough in Michael's life, he now always comes back to this memory and he knows it's going to be okay. It is incredibly powerful to look at your past memories through this process. I highly suggest you use this method on your own past stories. It's never too late to change how you feel about your own history. It's never too late. And that brings us to the present. The most difficult stage to apply the hindsight window to by far. And think about it. The things life brings us. I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce. I'm sorry to tell you this, but I'm going to have to let you go. Just a couple of sentences can cause undeniable angst and change so much of our lives in one moment. How do you deal with it? Now that you know the hindsight window, I suggest you apply it. I'm going to give you an example of how I changed my present within one moment. It was late April 2020. The world had been shut down due to this mysterious illness. It's an incredibly scary time, incredibly scary. Out of nowhere, everything changed. The world was shuttered down. Uncertainty and fear became everybody's neighbors. I own my own business, a recruiting company where companies pay us to fill the urgent positions. When the pandemic hit, I think it's needless to say, any work became non-existent. No income was coming in, but the bills kept rolling. And my incredibly active teenage boys were stuck in a house with nowhere to go and no sports to help with that pulsating masculine energy. I don't know what it was like for you, but our household, it got heated. There were a lot of ways people dealt with this situation. Me, at first, I had a lot of worry. I was anxious. I was anxious. What was going to happen to my business? How is this going to impact my kids? What happens if we get sick? The negative spiral was forming and it was coming for me. But I had a very serendipitous experience. I had signed up for this Wild Fit Challenge hosted by Eric Edmades in February of 2020. I had such incredible, miraculous changes for myself and my eating habits because of this man that I found myself so curious about more of his teachings. And I watched one of his videos that changed the pandemic for me in a moment. And it has continued to change my life since I watched the video. Can you guess what it's about? It was his talk about his theory on the hindsight window. And it blew me away. It was momentous. My world shifted once again. In it, he talks about his theory, and he gives his own example of his experience with a very huge theft that left him and his wife enraged, upset, a huge loss for them. And he had this epiphany as he was standing there looking at the empty van where everything had been stolen, that one day he might feel grateful for this event. So he started asking himself, why might I? Why might I? Why might I feel grateful for this? And he kept asking until he came up with answers. And by asking over and over, he did come up with all kinds of reasons why this could potentially end up being good for him. And he just went out and did those things. He said that he ended up experiencing the most productive 6 months of his entire life, all because of a big question, an important question. Why might I be grateful for this? Why might I be grateful for this? For me, I could see that we had no idea what was going to happen with this pandemic or how long this worldwide situation would last. We had no idea what kind of impact it was going to have on my family, on myself, on the world around me. I had no control over any of it, but I had control over my choices. I could continue to feel anxious, scared, worried. I could continue going down the road that took me down, resisting what was happening around me. Or I could find my hindsight window now, today. And in that moment, I looked at my situation differently. I looked for the ways that I could be grateful. I looked for the ways that I could make this global pandemic, the best thing that ever happened to me. So I started asking myself that question. How might I be grateful? And I knew in order to do that, I had to shift my focus. I'd been focusing on the things I could not control, and I had to keep my focus on the things that I could control. So what could I control? Myself. Again, that's it. That's all we can control. So all of a sudden, I had plenty of time to work on myself and my goals. I had a gift of time. So that's what I did. I got really clear about what I wanted in life, and I started taking the steps to get there. I threw myself into personal development, and I worked on who I was and who I wanted to be. I began healing my past stories. I began throwing away my limiting beliefs. I began proactively feeding my mind every single day. I looked for ways to help myself and for ways that I could help others. And this took the form of many, many things. I next leveled my learning game. I learned how to deal with my imposter syndrome. I learned how to become a meditation master. I learned energy work, self-hypnotism. I lost 20 pounds. I learned feng shui, cleared out all my old clothes. I made music videos from our family vacation photos and videos. I went from being a self-proclaimed non-cooker, going from knowing how to cook 5 meals to knowing how to cook over 30 and having the confidence to know I can figure out anything new. We had family dinners together every night. We played games together every day. I started a podcast called Thriving After 40. I wrote and published a book called Thriving After 40. I started a development on my prototype of a patent I developed. I taught myself how to play the piano, created a personal website. I, a self-proclaimed black thumb, helped my family dig out the weedy lawn And you guys, we made garden beds from scratch, which still amazes me. It was a big deal for me. Planted a garden bed, flowers everywhere, and transformed our backyard from an ugly, unusable space to a functional, enjoyable place. It still blows my mind. I wrote a lot of speeches, threw myself into Toastmasters. I hired a band to come play for our neighborhoods a couple of times, giving us that distance yet fun. We had rotating weekly driveway hangouts with various friends around town. I scheduled virtual game nights, bringing together scattered college friends. I created theme days, even 3 theme weeks, like throwing Thanksgiving in the middle of May or declaring it resort wear week, where you wear everything you wish you were wearing on vacation around the house. I got my life's coach certification. But most importantly, I learned how to be kind to myself. I learned how to work with my thoughts, how to let go of the unhelpful, mean, negative voices, and instead give power to the kind, thoughtful, and positive voice instead. I learned to work with my emotions and my energy. I learned how to view the world in a different way. It amazes me the changes I brought into my life. I thrived during an incredibly scary and unstable global pandemic, and I grew into a better person through it all because I learned the theory of the hindsight window. And I realized the amazing impact actively looking for your hindsight can have on your life. I'm going to say that again. Actively looking for your hindsight. Because that's the key, right? You do not have to wait for it to come to you. You can choose to find it. How might you find gratitude? Look for it. And in doing so, you will greatly influence your life in an extraordinary way. Until next time.